Hey everyone. Tonight we begin not in a warm barracks, but in a snow pit barely wide enough to hold a body. A young Soviet sniper curls into herself, breath frosting the air, hands frozen stiff around her Mosin rifle. You've heard stories of Red Army charges and tank duels, but the deadliest battles were fought here in silence. With sleep as dangerous as the enemy, this isn't about medals or parades. It's about beds of ice where closing your eyes could mean never opening them again. If exposing history's quietest deaths keeps the past alive, please like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what's the coldest night you've ever survived, Al? Pull your coat tight, lower your voice, and lie with me in the snow where dreams and death shared the same blanket. You feel the biting wind lash at your face, even as you huddle deeper into the crude cavity you've spent the last hour carving. Your hands, already numb, ache with a dull, throbbing pain. Fingers raw from scraping against the granular, unforgiving ice crystals. This isn't just a hole in the snow. It's your bed, your sanctuary, and perhaps your tomb. It's barely wide enough to contain your frame. A narrow trench offering a fragile promise of concealment from the brutal elements and an even more brutal enemy. You are young, perhaps just 18 or 19, your life stretching before you, yet here, in this frozen wasteland, each night feels like a lifetime. There are no tents here, no warm blankets, no soft pillows to cushion your weary head. Just you, the rifle clutched to your chest, and the vast, indifferent expanse of white. The precision required for your survival is terrifying. You know, with chilling certainty, that if this snow hole is dug too deep, the very snow that shields you could become your executioner, compacting around you in the silence of the night, slowly stealing your breath, suffocating you as you dream. The thought sends a shiver through your already frozen bones, a fear far deeper than the cold itself. But the alternative is equally perilous. Dig it too shallow, and the faint, almost imperceptible rise in the pristine landscape could catch the keen eye of a German spotter. Their binoculars, like predatory eyes, sweep the horizon, searching for any anomaly, any hint of life. A single, misplaced snowdrift, a shadow just a few inches out of place, could be all it takes. You lower yourself slowly, carefully, into the trench. The snow beneath you feels like a slab of solid ice, unyielding and relentless. Each inhale draws the frigid air deep into your lungs, a burning sensation that stings with every breath. The sub-zero temperatures transform this meager shelter into something more sinister. It's not just a sleeping arrangement. It is, quite literally, a ready-made coffin. You can almost feel the presence of the earth beneath the snow, waiting, patient. This deep cold doesn't just make you uncomfortable. It threatens to seep into your very bones, slowing your heart, numbing your thoughts, turning your body into something rigid and lifeless. You press your gloved hands together, trying to coax some warmth back into them, a futile gesture. The stories among your comrades are not whispered warnings, but stark realities. You've heard them. Stories of waking up, buried alive, the snow having drifted or collapsed silently around them in the night. The desperate, frantic struggle as sleep-addled minds grapple with the crushing weight. The sudden, terrifying realization that the air is thin, almost gone. They speak of hands shredded, raw and bleeding, from clawing at the compact snow, fingernails torn away in the desperate fight for a breath, a sliver of light. You close your eyes for a moment, picturing the horror, the suffocating darkness, the silent panic. It's a memory you haven't lived, but one that feels imprinted on your soul, a premonition. You remember the quiet mornings, the way the stark white landscape seemed to hold its breath. A comrade pointing, a silent gesture. And then you see it, a pair of boots, their worn leather tips barely visible, sticking out from a freshly formed mound of snow. Just boots, nothing else. The rest of the sniper was gone, swallowed by the drifts, sealed in by the cold. It's a chilling reminder, a silent testament to the thin veil between rest and eternal slumber. You lie there, heart thrumming a slow, steady rhythm against the ice, aware that each time you lie down in this frozen bed, you are rolling the dice, gambling not with possessions or trivial outcomes, but with the very essence of your existence. Each night is a wager, a silent pact made with the elements and the unseen enemy, where the only prize for winning is another dawn, another chance to face the ice and the silence. As you settle deeper into the frozen trench, the Mosin Nagant rifle becomes an extension of your body, a rigid, cold limb you cannot discard. It's not just a weapon. It is your constant companion, your only solace, and your most treacherous bedfellow. You pull it close, hugging its unforgiving metal stock against your chest, the polished wood of the grip a familiar, if chilling, comfort. In this brutal cold, the rifle cannot be left even for a moment. To do so would mean certain death. The mechanisms, designed for precision, are delicate. The sub-zero temperatures would seize the metal, turn the lubricating oil into a thick, immobile jelly, freezing the bolt action into a solid, unyielding block. You've learned this lesson already. Not from personal experience, thankfully, but from the hushed, grim stories passed among your sisters. The bare metal of the rifle, if it touches exposed skin, sticks instantly, a searing, painful adhesion that tears flesh away. You've seen the blisters, the raw, weeping wounds left behind, the skin flayed from fingertips and palms. So, you grip it through your thick, worn gloves, trying to prevent any direct contact. Yet the cold still seeps through, chilling your hands to the bone, a relentless, pervasive ache that never truly leaves. The rifle, though essential, feels like an icy burden, a paradox of protection and peril. The rifle oil, a vital lubricant, turns into a stubborn, molasses-like substance in this relentless cold. You've witnessed the desperate measures, heard the stories of comrades, roused by the distant sound of enemy movement, fumbling with a jammed bolt, their breath misting in the frigid air. The horrifying realization that their lifeline, their only defense, is frozen solid. Some, in their desperation, have resorted to extreme, almost unbelievable acts, urinating on the rifle bolt to thaw it out. The warm liquid a momentary salvation against the seizing cold. The indignity of it, the raw necessity, underscores the extremity of your situation. A jammed rifle, when the enemy appears, means certain death. There is no escape, no alternative. It's a simple, brutal equation. You recall the words of Rosa Shanina, a name whispered with reverence and dread among the snipers. Her diary entry, a stark, unforgettable truth. I held my rifle like a lover, but it was colder and heavier than death. The words echo in the silent chamber of your mind as you clutch your own rifle tighter. It's a sentiment you understand with a profound, aching clarity. This weapon, this cold, unfeeling steel, is your only bed partner, your only source of comfort in this vast, desolate landscape. Yet, it is also a silent threat, a potential betrayer. One moment of negligence, one mechanical failure, one tremor of the hand, and it could mean your end. It's a lover that demands absolute loyalty, absolute care, but offers no warmth in return. Only the chilling promise of survival, or the sudden, cold embrace of oblivion. The weight of it presses against you, a physical manifestation of the immense responsibility you carry. Every click, every creak of the metal, even in your sleep, is a sound you are attuned to, a potential harbinger of doom, or a whisper of reassurance. You imagine the intricate dance of its internal mechanisms, the finely tuned parts that must respond flawlessly, instantly, when called upon. Your life depends on it. The rifle is a fragile, temperamental thing, subject to the whims of the bitter cold, susceptible to a sudden frost or an unseen flaw. And so, you hold it, a cold lover in your arms, its metal pressing against your coat, its presence a constant, chilling reminder that even in the deepest sleep, danger lurks, ready to snatch you away at any moment, through the very object that promises to keep you alive. You adjust your grip, feeling the familiar contours of the stock, accepting its cold embrace, for it is the only one you have. You shift uncomfortably, feeling the dull ache in your fingertips and toes, a familiar companion in this frozen world. It's a precursor, you know, a subtle warning of the more brutal consequences that can unfold after just one night's sleep in these frigid conditions. The cold seeps into your extremities, insidious and unforgiving, slowly robbing them of life. You've seen it firsthand. The horrifying transformation as skin turns a mottled purple, then a ghastly black, consumed by necrosis. It begins as a numbness, a loss of sensation, a deceptive relief, before the deep, unbearable pain sets in, a throbbing agony that no amount of will can suppress. You rub your toes, still numb despite your efforts, a silent prayer escaping your lips that they won't follow the path you've witnessed in others. The field surgeons, their faces grim and weary, were often faced with the agonizing task of amputation. And in this desolate, war-torn landscape, there was no luxury of anesthesia. You've heard the stories, the guttural screams swallowed by the vast, white silence, the strong liquor offered as the only anesthetic, a desperate attempt to dull the unbearable edge of pain. Men and women alike, gritting their teeth, biting down on a leather strap or a piece of wood, anything to keep from crying out, as rusty knives, dulled by countless procedures, sawed through flesh and bone. The images, though unseen by your own eyes, are vivid in your mind, a haunting specter of what awaits if the cold claims its due. The makeshift bandages, crudely fashioned from rags torn from uniforms or, more often, from handfuls of freshly packed snow, pressed directly onto the raw, weeping wounds, were a testament to the brutal lack of resources. The snow, cold and pure, offered a temporary numbing effect, a small mercy. But it did little to prevent infection in conditions where cleanliness was an impossible dream. You remember the raw smell of antiseptic that was sometimes available, mixed with the metallic tang of blood and the pervasive odor of fear and suffering. Each wound, however small, was a potential gateway for death in this unforgiving environment. The cold, this silent, relentless killer, robs not just lives, but skills. You've known snipers, sharp-eyed and steady-handed, who after just one night woke to find their fingers, once agile and precise on the trigger, now stiff, blackened, and utterly useless. The ability to pull a trigger, that singular, vital action that defined their purpose, was gone, stolen by the frost. It was a silent, personal mutilation, a death of their warrior self. You wonder, with a chill, what that must feel like, to be rendered useless by the very conditions you are forced to endure, to survive, only to be unable to fight. Yet, some, with an astonishing resilience, refuse to yield. You've heard of them, seen them, those who, having lost fingers or even an entire hand, learn to adapt, to shoot with their remaining hand, their left, their right, whatever was left. They painstakingly relearned the intricate movements, the precise grip, the delicate squeeze, their determination a fierce, burning ember against the encroaching frost. It was a testament to the human spirit, a refusal to be defeated by the cold's merciless assault. But the cold, you know, is a slow, merciless killer, eroding abilities, diminishing the body, before it finally extinguishes the flame of life. It takes your strength, your dexterity, your very essence, bit by bit, until you are a hollowed-out version of yourself, a ghost against the white landscape, still breathing, but irrevocably changed. You pull your gloves tighter, clenching your fists, as if to physically ward off the creeping numbness, the insidious touch of frostbite that constantly threatens to claim its next victim. You lie absolutely still, listening to the almost imperceptible creak of the snow above you. It's a sound that prickles the back of your neck, a subtle shift in the pristine white dome that forms your fragile shelter. The snow, so soft and silent in its descent, becomes a menacing presence when it encases you. These snow shelters, dug with such meticulous care, are prone to sudden, terrifying collapse without warning during the long, dark hours of the night. It's a silent threat, a betrayal from the very element that offers you meager protection. You've learned to listen, to feel, to intuit the subtle changes in the snow's structure. But even the keenest senses can be fooled. The horror of awakening pinned beneath the snow is a nightmare that haunts your waking thoughts and seeps into your brief, troubled sleep. The sudden, crushing weight, the instant darkness, the chest compressed, lungs struggling for air that isn't there, the desperate, primal gasp for breath, the realization that you are entombed. You've heard the stories of snipers, strong and brave, reduced to terrified, struggling creatures, clawing frantically, hands bleeding, against the suffocating white. The blood, so starkly red against the snow, would freeze instantly, a macabre artwork of their final, desperate struggle. Each scratch, each frantic movement, is a desperate plea for life, a futile battle against the unyielding embrace of the snow. You imagine the silent panic, the muffled cries that would never reach the ears of a comrade, even inches away. Many have been found dead, frozen in mid-struggle, their bodies contorted into grotesque shapes, a silent tableau of their last moments. Their faces, often distorted by fear, preserved by the cold, are a grim reminder of the silent, lonely end that awaits so many. The image flashes in your mind, a hand, half raised, fingers splayed as if reaching for something that was always just out of reach. The sheer helplessness of it, the inability to fight back against the snow, is a terror that eclipses even the fear of an enemy bullet. Sometimes, the disaster strikes with an even more profound cruelty. Entire sniper teams, sisters in arms who shared their meager warmth and their deepest fears, have been known to suffocate together, entombed by the collapsing snow, their bond of camaraderie extended even into death, a shared grave in the white silence. You wonder about their last moments, if they knew what was happening, if they reached for each other in the darkness, if they shared a final, silent understanding. The thought weighs heavily on you, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the immense power of the indifferent natural world. The line between your snowbed and your grave is impossibly thin, separated by only a delicate, treacherous layer of ice and compacted snow. This place, meant for rest, meant for a brief respite from the horrors of war, transforms into a potential death trap each night. You are not safe, even in sleep. The very ground you lie upon, the very air you try to breathe, could at any moment turn against you. You close your eyes, trying to calm your racing heart. But the creaking sound, however faint, lingers in the cold air, a constant, unsettling whisper of what might come, of the silent, white embrace that could claim you next. You are utterly alone with this silent threat, and the knowledge of it is almost as suffocating as the snow itself. The night is a canvas of deep, impenetrable black, punctuated only by the distant, soft shush of falling snow, or the nearly imperceptible hiss of your own quiet breath. Then, without warning, the world explodes in an alien, sickly green glow. A German flare, launched high into the sky, bursts overhead, casting an ethereal, terrifying light across the vast, snow-covered field. You freeze, every muscle in your body locking into place, your heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. This isn't just light. It's the green light of death, illuminating every shadow, every ripple in the snow, exposing everything to the watchful eyes of the enemy. Under this eerie, luminous green glow, the instinct to breathe, to move, to even twitch, becomes a luxury you cannot afford. You have to stop breathing, to hold your lungs still, becoming utterly motionless, like a corpse. Your mind screams for air, but you fight it, your chest aching with the effort. Even the smallest puff of vapor from a single, ill-timed breath could give you away. A fleeting wisp against the cold air, visible for what feels like miles in the stark, unnatural light. You press your face deeper into the snow, trying to absorb its chilling embrace, willing yourself to blend, to disappear, to become part of the frozen landscape. The tension is unbearable, a taut wire stretched to its breaking point within your very being. You've seen comrades, heard their stories, of the extreme measures taken to suppress any involuntary movement, any telltale sign of life. Some bit their lips, hard, until the coppery taste of blood filled their mouths. The sharp pain a desperate anchor to suppress the uncontrollable trembling that threatened to betray them. The cold already causes a subtle shivering. but the fear amplifies it, threatening to turn a barely perceptible tremor into a full-blown shake. The taste of your own blood, the sting of the bite, is a small price to pay for remaining hidden, for surviving these agonizing moments. The green light seems to linger for an eternity, casting its judgmental gaze over you. Every second stretches into an age, each tick of your internal clock a drumbeat of dread. You know, with a chilling certainty, that snipers have been shot dead for something as minuscule, as involuntary, as a blink in the flare light, a single, unconscious flutter of an eyelid, a tiny break in the facade of deathly stillness, could be enough. The German spotters, their scopes trained, are looking for precisely that, the faintest sign of life, the smallest imperfection in the snowscape. They are patient, merciless hunters, and the flare is their spotlight, their tool of exposure. The flare itself doesn't kill you. It doesn't carry bullets or shrapnel. Its purpose is far more insidious. It merely points the way, a silent, glowing finger directing the enemy's gaze, guiding their bullets to do the lethal job. When the green light finally fades, plunging the world back into an even deeper, more profound darkness, you let out a slow, silent breath, your lungs burning, your body aching with the strain. The darkness, though still dangerous, feels like a temporary reprieve, a soft blanket pulled over your exposed form. But the memory of that green glow, the chilling knowledge of how easily you could be seen, how quickly you could be ended, lingers like a ghost in the air, a terrifying promise of future nights under that inescapable, deadly illumination. You are a puppet on a stage, and the flare is the stage light, waiting to reveal your act. When the sun finally dips below the horizon, taking with it the last vestiges of warmth, the true terror of the night begins. The relentless, biting cold, a tangible entity, wraps around you, seeping through your thick coat and multiple layers of clothing. There are no blankets, no insulated sleeping bags to offer even a hint of comfort. Your only defense against the creeping paralysis of the frost is the shared warmth of another human body. You and your fellow snipers, often just girls plucked from classrooms and farms, cling together, forming a desperate huddle in the narrow confines of your snow pit. You press close to your sister, the term a bond forged in the crucible of shared suffering and imminent death. In this desolate expanse, these snow pits transform from mere shelters into makeshift homes, defined by the intimacy of survival. You feel the faint tremble in her body, hear the shallow rasp of her breath, and feel the almost imperceptible thrum of her heart against your own. Her presence is a small, flickering flame against the vast, consuming darkness of the cold. You share stories in hushed whispers, dreams of home, of mothers, of hot food. Anything to distract from the gnawing numbness that starts in your toes and fingers and slowly, inexorably, climbs its way inward. But even this solace carries a profound, gut-wrenching dread. The stories are whispered, not as rumors, but as grim realities, a sister freezing to death in the night, her body stiffening in your arms, turning into an inert block of ice. And then, the horrifying imperative you often have to keep holding the corpse for hours, perhaps until dawn, to mask your own scent from the German dogs. Their keen noses, trained to sniff out the living, would detect any deviation, any new smell in the pristine, frozen air, to release her, To give in to the instinct to recoil could mean your own exposure, your own death. It is a macabre dance with the dead, a chilling test of your will and your capacity for horror. You recall the chilling confession from Shanina, a quiet whisper that resonated with a profound, universal fear among your ranks. I fear sleeping alone, the cold will kill me before the dream ends. The words ring with a terrifying truth. To be alone in this vast, frozen silence, with the cold seeping into every pore, is to invite death. The presence of another, even if their body grows still and cold, is a temporary reprieve, a delay against the inevitable. You press your face into your comrade's shoulder, feeling the faint warmth that still emanates from her, clinging to it, to her, with a desperate, silent tenacity. Sometimes, the awakening is a true horror, a slow dawning of realization in the pre-dawn gloom. You stir, your body stiff and aching, and feel the unnatural rigidity of the form next to you. The warmth you clung to for hours is gone, replaced by a profound, terrifying coldness. You realize, with a jolt that sends a wave of nausea through you, that you have been hugging a stiff, frozen body all night, seeking warmth from one who has already succumbed. The lines blur between the living and the dead in these snow pits. The desperate camaraderie of survival extending into a chilling intimacy with death. This bond, this sisterhood, is both a salvation from the loneliness of the cold and a constant, harrowing nightmare, weaving together the threads of life and death into a single, unbreakable, tragic tapestry. As the absolute darkness descends, wrapping around you like a heavy, cold blanket, your mind, starved of sensory input and battered by exhaustion, begins to conjure visions. Sleep, when it finally comes, is not a gentle descent into oblivion, but a tumultuous journey into the realm of dreams. And these dreams, in their cruel beauty, bring back vivid, almost tactile memories of home. You see the warm glow of the lamp in the kitchen, smell the sweet, earthy aroma of freshly baked bread. You hear your mother's voice, soft and melodious, calling your name from the doorway, beckoning you into the familiar comfort of a life that now feels impossibly distant. A fragile memory from another existence. These dreams are sweet, intoxicating betrayers, lulling you into a false sense of security, a dangerous distraction from the harsh reality of your frozen bed. But awakening, always sudden and jarring, means the immediate, brutal return to the present. The smell of fresh bread is replaced by the acrid scent of gunpowder and the metallic tang of dried blood. The warmth of home is traded for the bone-deep chill of the snow pit. And your mother's comforting voice is replaced by the gnawing hunger that forces you to chew on a piece of frozen leather from your strap, your teeth aching against the unyielding material, your stomach churning in protest. It's a cruel game your mind plays, offering brief, tantalizing glimpses of paradise, only to snatch them away, leaving you more desolate than before. The silence of the night, usually a tactical advantage, becomes a terrifying amplifier for the inner turmoil. Some snipers, tormented by their subconscious, would scream in their sleep, a raw, piercing sound that could travel for miles across the silent, snow-covered landscape. The danger of exposure was immediate and profound. Comrades, with heavy hearts and trembling hands, would have to smother these cries, pressing a gloved hand or a piece of cloth over the mouth, forcing silence upon the dreaming, anguished soul. It was an act of brutal necessity, a desperate attempt to protect the entire team from discovery, even if it meant silencing a sister in her most vulnerable moment. The image of that silent, desperate struggle, the internal conflict between compassion and survival, is etched into your memory, a silent testament to the horrors you endure. Others, the fortunate or perhaps the truly lost, died in their dreams, never waking again. Their last moments filled with the imagined warmth of home, a final, peaceful escape from the relentless cold and the constant threat of death. You wonder if they felt pain, if they knew, or if their minds simply drifted away, carried on the gentle currents of a forgotten melody, a final, beautiful hallucination. The thought offers a strange, morbid comfort, a softer ending than the brutality that usually awaits in this frozen hell. To die in a dream of home, rather than under the green flare or the gnashing teeth of a German dog, seems almost a mercy. Hallucinations, fueled by exhaustion, hunger, and the pervasive cold, begin to blur the line between dream and battlefield. The whispers of the wind take on the voices of loved ones. The shadows dance with spectral figures. The distant crunch of snow sounds like footsteps that aren't there. Your mind, starved of sleep and rest, struggles to distinguish what is real from what is merely a phantom conjured by your tortured subconscious. Sweet dreams, those fleeting moments of escape, become cruel traitors, luring you toward a death that feels almost seductive in its promise of an end to suffering. You pull your threadbare scarf tighter around your face, trying to shield your mind from the insidious whispers, clinging to the stark, cold reality as a bulwark against the tempting, deadly illusions. The profound silence of the Arctic night is a constant companion, but it is a silence often punctuated by sounds that send a spike of ice-cold dread through your veins. You are stretched taut, every nerve ending alert, listening. And then you hear it, a low, guttural growl, distant at first, then closer, seemingly just above your snow hole. It's the unmistakable sound of German shepherds, the enemy's silent hunters, their keen senses already on the hunt. These dogs are meticulously trained, their powerful noses capable of sniffing out the faint human scent of a sniper nest, even beneath layers of snow. The growls echo, magnified by the cold, crisp air, and your heart nearly stops. You press yourself deeper into the snow, trying to melt into the earth itself, willing your body to become scentless, invisible. Every ounce of your being is focused on remaining undetected. The women in your unit have developed desperate, often grotesque, rituals to mask their scent. You've smeared yourself with gunpowder, its acrid smell clinging to your clothes and skin. Tobacco, strong and pungent, has been rubbed into your uniform, its aroma a crude attempt to confuse the canine senses. Some have even resorted to smearing themselves with blood and mud. A primal, desperate attempt to become part of the very earth, indistinguishable from the frozen, lifeless landscape. The desperation of these acts is a testament to the terror the dogs inspire. You remember the stories of those who, faced with the immediate threat of detection, buried themselves beneath frozen corpses, their bodies mingling with the cold flesh of the dead, a horrifying, intimate embrace with oblivion. The smell of death, overpowering and pervasive, was a better camouflage than any concoction of gunpowder or mud. You picture the scene, the chilling resolve required to perform such an act, the ultimate sacrifice of dignity for survival. The growls grow closer, a low, rumbling menace that vibrates through the snow and into your very bones. You can almost feel the presence of the powerful animals just inches above you. Their hot breath perhaps misting the air, their eager paws perhaps scratching at the hardened surface of your snow pit. You hold your breath, your muscles rigid, your body screaming for movement, for release. But you resist. A single twitch, an involuntary spasm of a muscle, a sudden intake of air, could mean everything. It could mean being torn apart, savaged by the powerful jaws of these four-legged predators, a brutal, undignified end that fills you with a primal terror. Sleeping in the snow, already a gamble with death, transforms into an even more terrifying ordeal when the German dogs are near. It feels less like lying in a bed and more like lying beneath the very claws of predators, exposed and utterly vulnerable. Your mind races, conjuring images of sharp teeth, powerful bodies, the relentless pursuit. The growls fade, slowly, agonizingly, into the distance. But the memory lingers, a cold knot in your stomach, a reminder of the many silent, unseen hunters that stalk this frozen landscape. You remain motionless long after the sound has vanished, every nerve still jangling, every muscle still taut, until the utter silence finally reasserts itself, leaving you alone once more with your racing heart and the chilling echo of what might have been. Beyond the German bullets and the relentless cold, you contend with another enemy, one that attacks from within your own body. For the women in your ranks, menstruation became an unspeakable torture in these freezing conditions. The monthly cycle, a natural process, transformed into a cruel and painful ordeal. You remember the quiet dread that would settle upon you as the time approached, knowing the agony that lay ahead, unspoken, unacknowledged by anyone but your closest sisters. The blood, when it came, froze instantly in the brutal sub-zero temperatures. Rags, makeshift pads fashioned from whatever scraps of cloth could be found, would stiffen into iron-like shards, chafing and cutting against your skin with every movement. The pain, already profound, was exacerbated by the constant friction. Each step, each shift of position, an agonizing reminder of your body's betrayal. You carried this burden in silence, a private suffering that could not be openly acknowledged, lest it betray your position or draw unwanted attention. Medical supplies were a fantasy in this frozen hell. There were no sanitary pads, no pain medication, no respite. You simply endured, gritting your teeth, pushing through the waves of cramps and discomfort. The constant, stinging cold amplifying every ache. The internal battle was as cruel as any engagement on the front lines. Your own physiology, an intrinsic part of you, became a battleground, demanding a strength and stoicism that felt almost superhuman. You watched your comrades, their faces pale and drawn, their movements stiff with pain. Yet they carried on, uncomplaining, knowing that a single cry, a moment of weakness, could put everyone at risk. The necessity of silence was absolute. Cries of pain, however involuntary, had to be swallowed, choked back, buried deep within. To make a sound, to reveal your location through a moment of physical anguish, was to risk exposure, to invite enemy fire not just upon yourself, but upon your entire team. The moral weight of that responsibility was crushing, It seemed, at times, that facing German bullets, a swift and brutal end, would be easier than fighting the relentless, insidious pain of your own body, day after day, night after night, in absolute silence. This internal struggle, unseen and unheard by the enemy, was a constant drain on your energy, a silent battle fought in the deep trenches of your being. It was another layer of suffering, woven into the fabric of daily survival, a testament to the profound sacrifices made. The cold seeped into everything, intensifying every discomfort, making every natural process a torturous ordeal. You learned to compartmentalize, to push the pain aside, to focus on the next breath, the next movement, the next moment of stillness. But the enemy within, your own body, remained a formidable adversary, a constant, personal challenge in a world already overflowing with external threats. You grit your teeth, feeling the familiar cramp, and turn your face into the snow, willing it to pass, willing yourself to endure. As the first faint light of a new day begins to paint the eastern sky in hues of pale gray and bruised purple, you become aware of new inhabitants in this desolate landscape. Creatures of instinct driven by the same brutal needs as yourselves. Crows, black as sin, descend upon the frozen corpses scattered across no man's land. Their beaks sharp, their caws piercing the fragile morning silence. They peck at the unseeing eyes of the fallen, a gruesome ritual that unfolds with chilling proximity to your sniper nest. You lie perfectly still, trying to merge with the snow, trying to become another inanimate object in the vast, still expanse, a silent observer to nature's grim harvest. Then, a more insidious threat emerges from the deepening shadows, starving wolves, lean and gaunt, their eyes burning with a desperate hunger. They prowl the desolate stretches between the lines, drawn by the scent of death. They move like ghosts over the frozen ground, their breath frosting the air, their senses attuned to any sign of weakness. You hear their low growls, the faint lapping sounds as they lick at frozen bloodstains on the snow. Their presence a palpable menace. To them, you are merely another potential meal, a warm body in a landscape of frozen carrion. You maintain your rigid stillness, every muscle screaming in protest, pretending to be as dead as the soldiers around you. It's an act of profound self-preservation, a gamble that your stillness will fool their primal instincts. You imagine their keen noses, their predatory eyes sweeping over your hiding place, searching for any flicker of life, any warmth. The cold is so profound that even the faintest heat from your body could draw them in. You hold your breath, trying to slow your heartbeat, willing yourself to be nothing more than another snowdrift, another frozen shadow. Some snipers, in their brief, fitful sleep, have woken to the terrifying discovery of claw marks scored across their coats, left by some curious, hungry scavenger. The chilling knowledge that a wolf or a fox, driven by desperation, had approached so close, its breath perhaps warm against their cheek, its sharp claws brushing their clothing, is a nightmare realized. You imagine the shock, the terror, the instinct to scream, suppressed only by the rigid discipline of survival. It is a reminder that the war is not just against men, but against nature's own relentless, unforgiving scavengers. Others have endured the agonizing sound of crows plucking eyes from the dead all night long. A grotesque symphony of predation that gnaws at the edges of their sanity. The incessant cawing, the tearing sounds, the knowledge of what is happening just yards away, is a torment that few can fully comprehend. You lie there, listening, feeling the vulnerability of your own flesh, the fragility of your own eyes. In this frozen no man's land, life and death are intertwined, and the scavengers, both human and animal, roam freely, claiming their due. The battlefield is not just a stage for human conflict. It is a brutal ecosystem, where the laws of nature are enforced with merciless efficiency. And you are just one more creature struggling to survive its harsh decree. The cold grips you, a vice around your jaw, making your teeth chatter with an intensity that seems to echo through the entire frozen landscape. You bite down, hard, on your tongue, on your lip, trying to suppress the involuntary spasm, the betraying sound. In this world of profound, deadly silence, even the smallest noise can seal your fate. Your teeth, clattering against each other, produce a sound that feels deafening in the stillness, a stark contrast to the absolute quiet demanded by your mission. Desperate measures are taken to silence this physical betrayal. You've seen it, and you've done it yourself, stuffing rags, bits of torn cloth, even your own glove into your mouth, trying to muffle the sound, to suppress the uncontrollable shivering that makes your jaw ache. The fabric, cold and damp, presses against your teeth, an uncomfortable barrier against the very noise your body is making. It's a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of invisibility, the pretense of being part of the inanimate landscape. When German flares arc through the sky, casting their chilling green glow across the snowfield, the demand for silence becomes even more absolute, more terrifying. You learn to hold your breath, not just for seconds, but for what feels like an eternity as the flare drifts overhead. Your lungs burn, your head spins, but you dare not exhale, dare not let a whisper of air escape, for even that could be heard, could be seen, could be the signal that seals your doom. The silence you strive for is not merely a tactic. It is a death sentence waiting to be delivered if broken. The stories are grim, whispered in hushed tones, carrying the weight of painful memory, an ill-timed cough, a sudden, involuntary spasm from a sniper suffering from the freezing damp. Once doomed an entire sniper team. The small sound, carried on the crisp, frigid air, traveled further than imagined, pinpointing their location. The subsequent hail of bullets and artillery fire left no survivors. The cold, in its insidious cruelty, can turn your own body against you, transforming a simple, natural reflex into a fatal act of betrayal. And so, sleep, when it finally comes, becomes a different kind of prison, a prison of absolute silence. You are acutely aware of every rustle of your clothing, every subtle shift of your body, every breath you take. Your mind, even in slumber, is attuned to the desperate need for stillness, for quiet. The world outside is a realm of absolute soundlessness, and you must merge with it, become one with its profound quietude. The only sounds you allow are the slow, measured beats of your own heart. A drum against the ice, a reminder that you are still alive, still fighting, still enduring in this terrifying, silent world where a whisper can kill. The silence is no longer just a state. It is a weapon, wielded by both you and the enemy, and you must master it, or perish within its unforgiving embrace. The cold seeps into your very bones, a gnawing ache that intensifies with each passing hour of the night. You've witnessed the desperate calculations, The grim choices made when the relentless chill threatens to claim you. Sometimes, survival, in its most brutal form, means crawling into a snow pit that is not empty, but occupied by fallen comrades. The thought is abhorrent, a violation of the living and the dead. Yet the logic of survival is unyielding. These frozen bodies, once vibrant and warm, now rigid and cold, offer a macabre form of protection. Their stillness provides a natural camouflage, their presence masking your own from the enemy's watchful eyes. But more crucially, they offer a faint, lingering warmth, a thermal buffer against the overwhelming cold. The decaying processes are slowed by the deep freeze, and for a time, their bodies retain a measure of heat, a precious resource in this unforgiving landscape. You would press yourself against them, their unyielding forms a strange, chilling comfort. You recall the countless mornings when snipers stirred from their fitful sleep, only to awaken clutching rigid, frozen bodies. Their comrades in life now silent, unmoving companions in death. The shock, the nausea, the profound sadness of realizing who you had been holding was a burden carried in silence. Yet, the necessity outweighed the horror. It was a testament to the extremes to which you were pushed, the desperate measures taken to simply see another dawn. The line between the living and the dead blurred into an indistinguishable haze in the white void of the snowfield. Some swore they heard whispers from the dead in the night, faint, ghostly sounds carried on the wind. The cold, the exhaustion, the constant proximity to death played tricks on the mind. Were they truly voices, or merely the mournful sigh of the wind, twisted by a subconscious yearning for companionship? For a moment of shared humanity, you would lie there, listening, straining to decipher the imagined words, finding a strange, morbid comfort in the illusion. The spirits of the fallen, it seemed, continued their watch, their silent presence a constant reminder of the price of war. These snow pits, carved out of necessity, transformed into communal graves, not just for the dead, but for the living who shared their temporary repose. They were spaces where the boundaries between life and death dissolved, where the warmth of a decaying body was a lifeline, and the silence of the fallen was a shield. You would rise in the morning, stiff and aching, your spirit heavy with the grim intimacy of your night. The experience left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder of the utter dehumanization of war, where the living sought solace and survival in the silent, cold embrace of the dead. The snow, impartial and merciless, covered them all, equalizing the soldier and the fallen, preserving their shared, tragic story in its icy embrace. Even in this desolate hell, where every breath is a struggle and every moment a gamble, the human urge to bear witness, to record, to remember, persists. Some among your ranks, driven by an unspoken need, kept diaries, their hidden words a fragile protest against the encroaching silence and oblivion. You picture them, huddled deep in their snow pits, under the meager shelter of an upturned piece of canvas or a coat, scrawling their thoughts in the dim, flickering light of a stolen match or the ghostly glow of the moon. The conditions themselves conspired against this act of remembrance. The pages of the notebooks, cheap and thin, stiffened like wood in the sub-zero temperatures, resisting the pressure of the pen, ink, thin and watery, froze in the nib, turning into a solid block, refusing to flow. pencils, brittle with cold, snapped in half with infuriating ease, their lead crumbling into useless dust. Every entry was a battle, a small, stubborn victory against the elements that sought to erase all traces of your existence. The entries themselves reflected the brutal simplicity of their lives. Long, flowing narratives were impossible. The words shrank, distilling into raw, guttural expressions of survival. Cold, afraid. These stark, two-word sentences, scrawled with numb fingers, became profound declarations of existence, encapsulating the entirety of their experience. They were not poems or elaborate reflections, but desperate shouts into the void, echoing the truth of their days and nights. Each scratch of the pencil, each frozen letter, was a testament to the raw, visceral reality they endured. Sometimes, in moments of profound exhaustion and the creeping certainty of impending death, a more somber message would appear. If I don't wake, bury me here. These were not mere diary entries. They were unread wills, whispered instructions left behind in the frost, their quiet desperation chilling in its simplicity. They were final appeals, desperate pleas for recognition, for a final resting place, even if it was the very snow pit they had dug for themselves. The diaries became silent testaments, poignant relics of lives lived on the edge of extinction, each page a whisper permanently silenced by the relentless, indifferent snow. These frozen diaries, hidden beneath layers of clothing or tucked away in a meager pack, were more than just records. They were a lifeline, a connection to their humanity, a refusal to be utterly consumed by the brutality of war. They represented a defiant act of self-preservation, a way to hold on to who they were, even as the world around them sought to strip away every shred of identity. Each stiffened page, each half-frozen word, was a quiet monument to courage and suffering, waiting to be rediscovered, a voice crying out from the ice, telling a story that history, in its grand narratives of battles and victories, often forgets. The snow, in its endless white and quiet expanse, was both their grave and the keeper of their untold secrets, a vast, white archive of forgotten lives. The enemy, you learn, is not merely reacting to your presence. They are studying you, observing your patterns, predicting your movements. The Germans, with their own grim efficiency, meticulously studied the habits of the Soviet snipers, piecing together the subtle clues that betrayed your positions. They knew you needed to rest, to find shelter from the relentless cold. And they deduced that snow depressions, even the most carefully constructed, were prime locations for your nests. Your snowbed, designed for concealment, became a bullseye waiting for artillery. You would hear the distant rumble, the ominous whistle that preceded the impact, and your heart would leap into your throat. There was little time to react, nowhere to go. The shells would fall, landing with terrifying accuracy on the very spot suspected of harboring sniper teams. You pictured the brutal scene, the sudden concussive blast, the earth and snow erupting upwards, before falling back down in a deafening shower. Many women died still hugging their rifles, their last act one of desperate defiance, their cold lover their only comfort in the face of oblivion. The weapon that promised life now became their final embrace, a silent witness to their end. Others were buried alive beneath the bombardments, entombed by tons of collapsing snow and frozen earth. The shell fire, designed to rip and tear, instead sealed them in, a smothering, crushing death beneath the white, the horror of being aware, even for a moment, as the world imploded around you, the light extinguished, the air sucked away, is a torment you cannot fully imagine. Yet it is a constant, terrifying possibility. You lie in your own snow pit, listening to the distant shelling, wondering if the next impact, the next whistle, will be meant for you. For your precisely calculated, yet fatally exposed position. When the shelling ceased, and reconnaissance teams dared to venture out, they found grim tableaus. Corpses were discovered, frozen in combat poses, their bodies rigid, their faces often contorted in a final, silent scream. A hand still reaching for a forgotten cartridge. A body hunched over a rifle, as if preparing for a shot that would never be fired. These frozen figures were stark monuments to the suddenness of their end. Caught in the very act of survival, they were not merely victims of the cold, but targets, hunted and destroyed by a calculated enemy. The snowbed, meant to be a refuge, transformed into a bullseye, a beacon for German artillery. The ingenuity of your concealment was countered by the cruel precision of their observation. You learned to dig deeper, to find more obscure spots, to constantly shift your positions. But the threat remained, a chilling reality that seeped into every fiber of your being. Every time you lay down, knowing that your chosen spot might already be marked, identified, and targeted, was an act of profound courage, a silent defiance against the unseen enemy whose crosshairs might already be centered on your fragile, frozen sanctuary. The snow, in its deceptive purity, held both the promise of shelter and the terrifying certainty of exposure. The silence of the night, often desired for concealment, held another insidious danger. It was not merely the threats from the enemy or the elements that stalked your sleep, but the very act of deep slumber itself. The deepest sleepers, those whose exhaustion allowed them to finally succumb to a profound, unbreaking rest, often froze to death first. Their bodies, relaxed and unmoving, offered less resistance to the encroaching cold. Their blood circulation slowed, their core temperatures dropped, until life quietly, imperceptibly, ebbed away, leaving them frozen solid in their peaceful repose. Conversely, those who managed to stay awake, or whose sleep was too light, too disturbed by the constant threat of danger, turned into walking corpses by morning. Their eyes were hollow, their faces drawn and gaunt, their movements slow and deliberate, a desperate struggle against the profound exhaustion that dragged at their limbs and clouded their minds. They had survived the night. Yes. But at what cost? Their minds were ravaged, their bodies pushed to the brink of collapse, making them susceptible to errors, to moments of hesitation that could be just as fatal as a bullet. Each passing night in these snow pits brought a new tally of casualties, not all by enemy fire. Many succumbed to the relentless assault of frostbite, their extremities ravaged beyond repair, their bodies slowly consumed by the cold. Others fell prey to madness from exhaustion, their minds snapping under the strain, lost to hallucinations and delirium. There was no true rest in this frozen hell, only two different, equally destructive paths to oblivion. Sleep was not a period of recovery, a chance to rejuvenate and gather strength. Instead, it was a surrender, an act fraught with peril, a gamble with your very life. The concept of rest, as civilians knew it, ceased to exist. Here, rest itself became a different, more profound form of sacrifice. You sacrificed your warmth, your comfort, your safety, and often, your very life, in the pursuit of even a few minutes of uneasy slumber. The price of a quiet night, a night undisturbed by immediate enemy action, was paid in the gradual erosion of your physical and mental being. A slow, internal dying that crept closer with each passing hour. You would wake, if you woke at all, feeling more exhausted than when you lay down, the cold having seeped into your bones, leaving you stiff, aching, and profoundly weary. The sun would rise, painting the snow in a deceptive golden light. But for you, the morning brought no true relief. It merely heralded the beginning of another day of fighting, another day of pushing your body to its absolute limits, another day of wrestling with the ghosts of the night. You would rub your numb fingers, trying to coax life back into them, feeling the profound weight of sleep deprivation dragging at your eyelids. The quiet night had exacted its toll, a silent butcher claiming its victims, leaving behind those who, though still breathing, were profoundly changed, closer to the edge, their bodies and spirits worn thin by the relentless demands of survival in the frozen wilderness. The price was always paid, in blood, in sanity, in life itself. In the unforgiving vastness of the Arctic North, where the front lines stretched into realms of unimaginable desolation, the nights were not merely long, they were endless, a suffocating eternity of darkness that could last for 20 hours. The sun would merely skim the horizon, casting a brief, pale light, before retreating again, plunging the world back into an even deeper, more profound gloom. Days and nights blurred together, the natural rhythm of time vanishing, replaced by an oppressive, perpetual twilight that gnawed at the edges of your sanity. In this relentless darkness, deprived of natural light and sleep, the mind began to betray itself. Hallucinations, vivid and compelling, took hold. You would see glowing fires in the distance, their warmth a tantalizing mirage, only to blink and find them gone, replaced by the stark, indifferent whiteness. Voices, soft and familiar, would whisper your name, calling from the depths of your memory, the voices of your mother, your father, a childhood friend. You would hear them as clearly as if they were standing beside you, their words a cruel balm against the pervasive loneliness. Visions of home, detailed and vibrant, would play out before your eyes, offering a painful contrast to the brutal reality of your surroundings. Soldiers, pushed to the absolute limits of human endurance, began to hold conversations with these ghosts, as if they were real, tangible presences. You'd hear whispered dialogues in the darkness. A lonely sniper talking to an imagined loved one, pouring out their fears, their hopes, their memories. The line between reality and delusion became impossibly thin, stretched and frayed until it broke entirely. The ghosts of the past, the specters of hunger and cold, became more real than the comrades sleeping inches away. Some, lost completely in the delirium of unending night and profound exhaustion, would succumb to an even darker impulse. Their minds, unable to bear the weight of reality and hallucination, would snap. They would turn their rifles on themselves, seeking a final, desperate escape from the torment, a permanent silence to the voices and visions that plagued them. The sound of a single, muffled shot echoing in the profound darkness was a chilling reminder of the fragility of the human mind. and the ultimate, brutal toll of this endless night. The darkness itself, you realize, proved deadlier than the German army. It was an omnipresent enemy, eroding your will, corrupting your perception, stripping away your sanity, one endless hour at a time. It bred fear, despair, and madness, turning comrades into hollow-eyed strangers, their souls haunted by unseen horrors. You would push through, clinging to the faintest hope of dawn, fighting not just the enemy, not just the cold, but the encroaching shadows in your own mind, knowing that to lose that fight meant to be swallowed whole by the endless, suffocating night, never to emerge again into the light. The darkness was a living, breathing entity, and you were its prisoner, waiting for a dawn that seemed to perpetually refuse to come. The end, when it came, was as stark and unceremonious as the life you lived in the snow. When a woman died in the snow pits, there were no grand funerals, no solemn ceremonies, no grieving crowds. There was only the grim reality of necessity and the pervasive, indifferent silence of the battlefield. You would watch, your heart heavy, as comrades, stiff and numb with grief and cold, shoveled snow over her body. The very hole she had dug for shelter, her precarious bed, became her final resting place. There were no priests to offer blessings, no sacred rites to ease the passage of her soul. The sound of shovels scraping against frozen earth and compact snow was the only eulogy, a harsh, metallic symphony in the profound quiet. Each shovelful of snow was a final goodbye, a brutal act of remembrance that erased her physical presence, but deepened her memory in the hearts of those left behind. The snow, falling softly or driven by the wind, would quickly cover the freshly turned earth, leaving no trace. No names were carved into makeshift markers. No headstones erected to commemorate their sacrifice. There was no recognition for these quiet deaths, swallowed by the vast, white expanse. The individual was subsumed by the greater struggle, her life a fleeting spark against an immense, consuming darkness. Your own name, you know, would suffer the same fate. These snow graves were temporary, unmarked, destined to be forgotten by all but a handful of weary, surviving souls. The landscape itself, pristine and indifferent, became their monument, their unmarked cemetery. The sleeping pit, so carefully constructed each night, had always held the potential to become a grave. Now, for your fallen sister, that potential became a chilling reality. The boundary between the two had always been blurred, but now it was utterly erased. The silence, which had been a tactical tool, a constant companion, and sometimes a terrifying tormentor, now became the only funeral song, a mournful, echoing quietude that swallowed all sound, all grief, all memory. The snow, in its pure, relentless fall, erased all traces of their existence. Footprints disappeared, disturbances in the landscape smoothed over, until the earth returned to its pristine, unbroken white. It was as if they had never been there, never fought, never suffered, never dreamed. Their sacrifice, immense and profound, became invisible, known only to the wind and the snow itself. You would stand there for a moment, head bowed, feeling the profound weight of their loss, and the chilling certainty that your own end might come in the same anonymous, silent way. The snow would simply claim you, and you would become another silent ghost in its vast, white expanse. Your story buried deep beneath the ice, waiting for an excavator, centuries hence, to finally reveal the truth. As twilight bled into the deep, inky blackness, a quiet, almost sacred ritual would begin. It wasn't one of comfort or rest, but of preparation, of acceptance, of a stark communion with the ever-present shadow of death. Before lying down in your snow pit, your hands, stiff with cold, would perform a series of practiced motions. The Mosin rifle, your cold lover, was checked one final time. You'd run your gloved fingers over the bolt, ensure the mechanism moved smoothly, whisper a silent prayer that the oil hadn't congealed, that no icy shard had lodged itself in the firing pin. Every detail, however small, was a matter of life and death. Next, your scarf, worn and frayed, but still a vital barrier against the brutal cold, would be wrapped tightly around your face. It left only a narrow slit for your eyes, protecting your skin from frostbite, warming the air you breathed, and most importantly, obscuring your identity, making you a faceless warrior merging with the night. The feel of the rough wool against your cheeks was a familiar comfort, a small, personal shield in the vast, exposed wilderness. Whispers, barely audible above the faint sigh of the wind, would escape your lips. Quiet prayers, not of hope or salvation, but often of stark, simple survival. You might ask for strength, for vigilance, for the swiftness of your aim, for another dawn. These were not the eloquent prayers of a church, but raw, primal pleas from the deepest parts of your soul, uttered into the vast, indifferent darkness. Each word was a tiny defiance against the encroaching terror, a small assertion of humanity in a world that sought to strip it away. You'd lie down on one side, a deliberate choice, not for comfort, but for readiness. Your trigger hand, gloved and aching, would always be free, resting lightly on the cold metal of your rifle. It was poised, ready to spring into action at the slightest sound, the faintest flicker of movement. There was no true relaxation, no letting down of the guard, even in the deepest sleep. A part of your mind remained alert, listening, waiting. Your body, despite its exhaustion, held itself in a posture of perpetual readiness, a silent promise to itself. Many whispered a quiet vow, a fierce declaration to themselves before closing their eyes. If I wake, I will kill another German. It was a mantra of survival, a purpose that propelled them through the darkest hours, giving meaning to their suffering. It wasn't about hatred, not entirely, but about a stark, brutal resolve to survive, to inflict a cost upon the enemy, to make their suffering count for something. Sleep, then, became not an act of rest, but a ritual of preparation, a mental and physical rehearsal for the fight that awaited them in the morning. No one dared close their eyes without thinking of death, without confronting its constant, chilling presence, without making their desperate, silent pact with survival. Each night was a journey to the precipice, and each morning, if you woke, was a fragile, hard-won victory. The newspapers back home, filled with propaganda and soaring rhetoric, painted a heroic, almost glamorous picture of you and your sisters. Soviet propaganda, ever eager to inspire and galvanize, transformed you into fearless heroines, goddesses of the battlefield. Stories depicted your unwavering courage, your icy calm, your legendary kill counts. You would see the glamorous portraits, retouched and idealized, smiling faces framed by neat scarves, rifles held with an air of confident mastery. These images, designed to uplift the nation, bore little resemblance to the brutal reality you lived. The reality, the truth of your existence, was a stark, chilling contrast to the polished legend. You did not feel like a goddess, a heroine. You felt like an abandoned child, freezing in the snow, curled into a desperate ball in a hole barely large enough to hold your suffering body. The glamour was an illusion, a thin layer of paint over the raw, bleeding truth. You were hungry, exhausted, constantly terrified, and perpetually cold, a bone-deep chill that never truly left you. The stories of your exploits were real. Yes, the kills were counted, but the suffering, the relentless, dehumanizing grind of survival in the frozen wilderness, was meticulously erased. Glory, a word bandied about by distant strategists and patriotic journalists, was just a whisper carried on the wind, a fleeting concept utterly irrelevant in your snow pit. Here, glory was nothing more than a layer of paint, a fragile veneer over frozen corpses, over amputated limbs, over shattered minds. The myth and the truth were separated by a single, shallow snow pit, a mere few inches of compacted ice and earth that held the stark, unvarnished truth of your daily agony. The legend spoke of steel nerves. The reality was biting your lip until it bled to suppress a tremor. The legend spoke of unwavering resolve. The reality was fighting the urge to scream in your sleep. History, in its broad strokes, remembered the kills, the statistics, the impressive numbers of enemy soldiers eliminated. But it largely erased the suffering, the quiet, personal hell you endured each night. It forgot the gnawing hunger, the frost-bitten toes, the terror of suffocation, the silent tears shed in the darkness. It glorified the outcome, but obscured the devastating human cost, the slow, agonizing erosion of body and soul. The narrative of heroism was a necessary fiction, a powerful tool for a nation at war, but it cast a long, cold shadow over the quiet, brutal truths of individual sacrifice. You would sometimes wonder, in your moments of deepest despair, if anyone would ever truly know what it felt like, what you truly endured. Would the sanitized versions of history ever capture the visceral terror, the profound exhaustion, the dehumanizing cold? The answer, you knew, was likely no. Your story, in its raw, unfiltered truth, was too grim, too uncomfortable for the grand narratives of victory. And so, you lived the legend, while dying in reality, a silent, unacknowledged sacrifice in the vast, indifferent expanse of war, where only the snow bore witness to the full, devastating price of your courage. The echoes of your sisters in arms, and of your own quiet struggle, reverberate through the annals of history, a testament to an unimaginable sacrifice. Over 2,000 Soviet women, many of them incredibly young, most under 25 years old, served as snipers in the Great Patriotic War. They were plucked from their ordinary lives and thrust into the crucible of extreme combat, their youth and innocence replaced by a chilling proficiency in the art of silent death. Their courage was undeniable, their dedication absolute. Collectively, these women killed more than 11,000 German soldiers, each shot a precise act of defiance against the invasion of their homeland. Their names, like Rosa Shanina, Lyudmila Pavlichenko, and many others less known, are etched into the memory of a nation. They became symbols of resilience, precision, and unwavering resolve. But beneath these impressive statistics, within the cold, hard truths of their lives, lies a more profound, more tragic legacy. The cold, that relentless, silent enemy, claimed more lives among them than enemy bullets ever did. Their deathbeds of snow, the shallow, frozen pits they dug each night, became haunting symbols of this silent sacrifice. These crude shelters, meant to offer respite, instead became sites of unimaginable suffering, of frostbite, of suffocation, of profound loneliness and terror. They represent not just the hardship of war, but the unique, harrowing torment endured by those who faced not only an armed enemy, but the very elements, weaponized and merciless. Each frozen hollow in the snow whispers a story of a gamble, a prayer, a silent battle fought in the deep quiet of the night. They died in silence, their last breaths often mingling with the frigid air, their bodies slowly entombed by the ever-falling snow. No grand pronouncements, no fanfare, no final words, just the profound, encompassing silence of the frozen earth. Yet, they left echoes in history's frost, whispers carried on the biting wind, stories of courage and suffering that persist despite the attempts to erase them. Their legacy is not just one of heroism, of impressive kill counts and national pride. It is also a legacy of horror, encased in ice, a stark reminder of the brutal, unacknowledged cost of their silent war. You, too, are part of this legacy. You, who survived, who endured, who witnessed these silent deaths and the profound suffering. Your memory, your experience, becomes a part of this enduring testament to the human spirit pushed to its absolute limits. And as you reflect on these stories, on the unimaginable choices and sacrifices made, a final question lingers in the crisp, cold air. A thought that perhaps has always haunted those who walk these frozen paths. Would you dare close your eyes in the snow, knowing, with chilling certainty, that you might never open them again?